risky for our children because of the long-term consequences. The longer we left it to deal with this time bomb, the more unpredictable those consequences were going to be.
Pripyat was sealed off and left a ghost town. Western scientists said their reactors were safer, but few were now prepared to believe them. Altogether, 600,000 people were contaminated by Chernobyl. Radioactive dust drifted over Western Europe. And the question no one could answer was, what would happen in the long run? In the United States, too, the learning curve was costly. At the start of the nuclear age, no one knew what the long-term effects would be. But many of the soldiers exposed to the desert tests developed radiation diseases. And the assurances given to St. George, Utah, that the fallout was harmless, also proved wrong. Sheldon Johnson, the former GI who thought his life had been saved by the Hiroshima bomb, brought up a family and had a second son.
The first time it really hit me really strongly was when, in 1954, we had a Down syndrome son born to us, and we were very young parents. We found lots of others with the same situation, and that came to me that, now, wait a minute, for a small town, we have an enormous number of children with mental retardation of all various genetic defects that were born around 1954. Why? You know, it really came quite forcefully then. What was different about 1954? Well, Dirty Harry was one.
The Japanese had the greatest first-hand experience of what an atomic explosion and radiation could do to people. Sumiteru Taniguchi, the boy from Hiroshima, was still being treated for his burns in 1996.
My wounds weren't properly treated until 1960. That was 15 years later. It wasn't easy. Then I developed a tumor where the skin had burnt, and the doctors told me it was cancer. The war ended 49 years ago, but not for us. We victims have been suffering ever since, and we don't know how it's going to affect future generations.
In the 1990s, governments had to weigh the strength of popular feeling against the long-term need for electricity. Almost all Western countries stopped ordering nuclear power stations after Chernobyl. But despite passionate opposition, the Japanese government continued its nuclear program and opened a new fast breeder reactor. 50 years after Hiroshima, Japan operated 49 nuclear power plants, producing electricity for 1/3 of its people. And as the century ends, Japan's dilemma remains: how best to balance the fear of nuclear energy against its promise.